My son called me in the middle of the night. Dad, I'm at the police station. Mom's new husband beat me, but now he's telling them that I attacked him. They believe him. When I arrived at the station, the officer on duty turned pale and, stammering, said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. Nothing good ever starts with a 3 a.m. ringtone. Seriously, if your phone rings at that hour, it's either the Grim Reaper, a drunk ex, or trouble with your kid. And trust me, none of them are bringing cupcakes." Mine buzzed so hard on the nightstand that I thought it was trying to dig itself a tunnel out of my life. The screen glowed like a warning sign in a horror movie. Jaden, my boy. For a split second, I thought maybe he'd just locked himself out of his apartment again or needed gas money. Then I answered, and his voice cracked through the static like a punch in the gut. "Dad, I'm at the police station. Mom's husband hit me, but he's saying I attacked him. They believe him." It was like my heart got jump-started by lightning. Coffee. Forget it. I went straight to adrenaline. Jeans, boots, jacket, keys. I skipped brushing my teeth. Justice doesn't wait for mouthwash. Within 30 seconds, I was out the door, truck engine roaring like it shared my fury. You ever had that moment where your pulse is doing 100 miles per hour before your brain catches up? That was me, racing down the empty street, headlights cutting through the dark like they were hunting for someone to blame. I'd warned Lisa about her new husband. Oh yes, Mark Sutton, the man who looked like a car commercial and talked like a self-help podcast nobody asked for. All perfect smile, zero soul. But Lisa wanted stability. She said he had a calming presence. Yeah, like a rattlesnake meditating before it strikes. The guy had red flags, so bright I could have used them as traffic signals. But, no, she needed security. Because nothing screams secure like a dude who flexes in every reflective surface he passes. I had to bite my tongue back then, watching my ex-wife fall for a discount motivational speaker with a gym membership and a superiority complex. But I told her, Mark had that look in his eye, the kind that doesn't love, it owns. She'd rolled hers and said, "Not everyone's like you, Paul." Which, for the record, was the nicest way to say shut up. Now, speeding through the night with the dashboard clock mocking me, 3:07 a.m., I kept replaying Jaden's voice. My boy sounded scared, not just shaken. I knew that tone. I'd heard it in victims during my detective years. The kind of fear that sits under your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. It wasn't teenage exaggeration. It was real, bone-deep terror. I gripped the steering wheel so hard I could have snapped it. All those times I'd told Lisa, if he ever hurts my son, I'd meant it. And tonight, it wasn't an if. I hit every green light, probably because even the universe knew better than to slow me down. When you're a father and someone lays hands on your kid, logic takes a backseat. What rides shotgun is pure, focused rage, buckled in and ready to go. My truck fishtailed slightly on the last turn before the precinct. The tires screamed in solidarity. I parked crooked, didn't care. Slammed the door, stomped up those concrete steps like they owed me an apology. The night air bit hard, but my blood was running too hot to feel it. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered in that half-dead way all police stations seem to have, like the building itself was tired of seeing humanity's nonsense. The front desk clerk, some kid who probably still thought cop was short for content officer, started to say something, but I just flashed my retired badge out of habit and muttered, "Where's my son?" He pointed toward the holding area, wide-eyed, probably wondering why a middle-aged guy in boots and rage looked ready to reenact a Western. Jaden, my boy. He was sitting there behind a rail, hands zip-tied, hoodie ripped, a smear of blood under his nose. His brown hair stuck to his forehead in sweaty clumps, and his eyes, God, his eyes looked hollow. I'd seen soldiers with that stare after bad tours. He looked up at me, and even though he tried to act tough, I saw the relief flash through him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Dad," he croaked, and then I saw him. Mark Sutton, the living embodiment of smug. He was across the room, giving his statement like he'd just solved world hunger. Designer jeans, expensive watch, fake limp. Oh, he had it all. The audacity of that man was supernatural. His face didn't have a scratch, but he winced like a Shakespearean actor auditioning for Victim of the Year. If I hadn't promised Jaden I'd stay out of jail, I would have adjusted that smirk right off his face. "Mr. Baker," a nervous voice stammered. I turned to see a rookie, Ty Collins, if I remembered the name tag right. Fresh out of the academy, still had that hopeful glow that life hadn't beaten out of him yet. I didn't know it was your son. The kid looked like he wanted to disappear into his own clipboard. Yeah, rookie mistake. Nobody ever knows who they're messing with until the yelling starts. I gave him a look that said, we'll talk later. But right now, my focus was on Jaden. Cut the tie, I said. It wasn't a request. Ty hesitated, like he wasn't sure if protocol allowed it. Before I could repeat myself, Sergeant Ramirez appeared, short, sharp, with a braid so tight it could slice diamonds. She took one look at the scene, rolled her eyes, pulled out her knife, and in one clean motion, the zip tie was history. About time, I muttered. I pulled Jaden up and hugged him. He smelled like sweat, blood, and fear, my least favorite cologne. His body was trembling, and I felt every tremor like an accusation. You okay? I asked. Dumb question. Of course, he wasn't. But he nodded anyway, because that's what strong kids do. They lie so their fathers don't explode. He said I hit him, Jaden whispered. I didn't, Dad. I swear. I looked him in the eye. I know you didn't. Because I did. My kid had never been that type. Mark Sutton, on the other hand? Oh, I knew exactly what type he was. The kind who throws the punch and cries victim when the cops show up. The kind who practices his excuses in the mirror. Mark caught my stare from across the room. He had that smirk on his face, the one that says, I've got the upper hand. And maybe he thought he did. Maybe he thought his money, his shiny reputation, his community outreach, donations could outshine my son's word. That smirk was gasoline, and my patience was the match. I took one step forward, and Ramirez's hand shot up like a traffic cop at the Indy 500. Not tonight. Baker, she said under her breath. Let the system work. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. The system, I muttered. Sure. Great system we got. Works wonders if you're the guy with a golf club membership. Jaden leaned into me slightly, and I could feel his exhaustion. He was barely keeping it together, and honestly, neither was I. I turned to Ramirez. I'm taking him home. She gave a slow nod. We'll need statements later. You'll get them, I said, already guiding my son toward the door. Mark tried to say something, probably some smug remark, but I didn't even look back. If I did, I wouldn't stop at words. Outside, the cold air hit us like reality re-entering the scene. Jaden shivered, and I threw my jacket over his shoulders. You believe me, right? He asked. I stopped walking and turned to him. Jaden, if I ever doubted you, I'd hand him my last name. We'll fix this. He nodded, and for a second, I saw the little boy who used to fall asleep in my lap watching old detective movies, asking, Dad, were you ever that cool? And I'd tell him, Kid, I taught cool. As we climbed into the truck, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror, tired eyes, unshaved jaw, anger simmering just below the skin. I wasn't just a dad tonight. I was a storm with a steering wheel. I started the engine, looked at my son, and said, Hang tight, kiddo. Tonight, somebody's about to learn what karma looks like when it drives a Ford. Then I hit the gas, and the city lights blurred behind us like streaks of war paint. Whatever Mark Sutton thought this was, he was about to find out. He picked the wrong family to mess with. The Midtown precinct always smelled the same. Burnt coffee, old paper, and the kind of stress that seeps into the floor tiles and never leaves. You could blindfold me, drop me in there from a helicopter, and I'd still know where I was just by the scent of stale donuts and bad decisions. It was a smell I'd tried to leave behind after retiring, but here I was again, walking through those double doors like a bad sequel nobody asked for. The night shift buzzed around like caffeinated bees, everyone pretending they weren't dying to know why the ex-detective was storming in at 3:30 a.m. with his battered teenage son in tow. Jaden looked like hell, hoodie torn, lip bleeding, one eye already swelling shut like he lost a bar fight with gravity. He sat on a hard metal bench, zip-tied to a rail like some low-budget criminal, and it made my blood boil. The kid could barely lift his head, and yet here he was treated like the problem. Across from him, lounging like he owned the damn room, sat Mark Sutton. Tailored shirt, fake injury limp, face arranged in that perfect, I'm the victim here, expression. The guy could have been an ad for smugness, maybe Evil Husbands Monthly. A young officer, barely old enough to rent a car, nearly tripped over his clipboard when he saw me. Mr. Baker, sir, he stammered, eyes widening. I didn't realize it was your son. His badge said Collins, but he had rookie written all over him. Pressed uniform, over-polished boots, the faint smell of optimism that only existed in people who hadn't yet had to testify against a corrupt superior. "Yeah," I said, voice low enough to make him flinch. "You didn't." He looked like he wanted to evaporate on the spot. I wasn't trying to scare him. It just happened naturally when you've been awake for 30 hours and your kid's been assaulted by a man you already hated. Sergeant Ramirez appeared from her office, dark hair tied in her trademark braid that could probably slice through steel if she wanted. Ramirez was one of the few people left in this department who still believed in doing things by the book, unless the book was wrong, in which case she rewrote it herself. She saw me, saw Jaden, saw the smug slimeball sitting across the room, and I could tell instantly that she got it. Without saying a word, she marched over, pulled out her pocket knife, and cut the plastic tie off my son's wrists. "Jesus, Collins," she muttered. "You ever heard of probable cause?" "Protocol," he started, but Ramirez cut him off with a glare that could have stripped paint. "Protocol's for people who can read situations, kid. This one's a mess." I knelt in front of Jaden, careful not to touch him too roughly. "You okay?" I asked, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. He shook his head, eyes glassy. He slammed my head into the counter, he whispered. My heart cracked clean in two. Before I could even respond, Mark piped up from his little stage. "He came at me first," he said, clutching his side dramatically. I tried to restrain him. "He's been hostile ever since Lisa married me. He's violent." His tone was perfect, half concern, half martyrdom. If I didn't know better, I'd have believed him. But I did know better. I'd spent years listening to professional liars, and he was fluent. I stood, hands in my jacket pockets, because if I didn't put them somewhere, they'd find his face. "You sure you want to stick with that story, Mark?" I asked, because it sounds like the kind of story that ends with you wearing orange and calling your lawyer between meal trays. Mark turned to Ramirez, pretending I didn't exist. "This is harassment," he said. "You're allowing this man to intimidate me." Ramirez leaned on the desk, her eyebrow raised just enough to let me know she wasn't buying his Oscar performance. "You'll survive," she said flatly. "Now sit down before you hurt yourself again." That's when I noticed Ty Collins fiddling nervously with something near his tablet. Mr. Baker," he whispered. "Sir, I think there's something you should hear." His eyes darted toward my son's hoodie pocket. "What is it?" I asked. "Your son's phone," he said. "It was recording. Audio only. It's, not good for Sutton." I blinked. For a second, I thought maybe fatigue was making me hallucinate. "You're telling me there's a recording?" "Yes, sir," Ty said. "The call started automatically. He must have hit record when he called 911. It caught everything." I stared at him, trying not to smile like a lunatic. "Kid, if this pans out, you're getting a Christmas card from me every year until you retire." Ramirez snatched the phone, scrolled, hit play. And there it was, Mark's voice, loud and furious, yelling things that would make a sailor blush. Jaden's voice came through next, panicked, pleading. Then a crash, glass breaking, a muffled thud. And finally, silence. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Even the coffee machine stopped gurgling, like it knew this was important. Ramirez clicked the phone off and turned toward Mark, who suddenly looked like he wanted to crawl into the nearest drain pipe and disappear. "Mr. Sutton," she said, her tone as sharp as her braid. "You want to revise your statement?" Mark's mouth opened and closed like a fish learning English. It's taken out of context." "Context," I said, stepping forward. "What's the context where slamming a kid's head into a counter becomes acceptable? Self-defense against a teenager armed with what acne?" "Enough, Baker," Ramirez said quietly, but I could tell she was holding back a grin. Mark's jaw twitched. "This is ridiculous. He's a troubled kid. He attacked me because he's jealous of his mother's new marriage." I folded my arms, smirking. "Sure, that's it. The classic Oedipus complex defense. Haven't seen that one since Law and Order reruns." Ramirez had heard enough. "Ty, get Sutton into an interview room. And give me a printout of that recording. Mr. Baker, I'll need your statement, but after that, take your son home." Mark glared at me as the rookie led him away. "You think you've won, old man," he hissed. "Oh, I don't think," I replied. "I know." Once he was out of sight, Ramirez sighed. "You always bring the circus with you, Baker." I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. "Nah, this time the circus came to me." I'm just the janitor cleaning up the clown blood. Ty handed me the evidence receipt with shaky hands. Sir, I just want to say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have believed him. I clapped him on the shoulder. Kid, rookie lesson number 1. Never trust a man who uses hair gel before breakfast. And number 2, always follow your gut. Tonight, your gut was trying to speak, but you drowned it in paperwork. He nodded sheepishly. Yes, sir. Jaden leaned against me, exhausted. Can we go home now? Yeah, kid, I said softly. We're done here for now. As we walked toward the exit, I turned back to Ramirez. You're still running this madhouse. Until I win the lottery, she said. Then I'm buying a boat and sailing far away from idiots like Sutton. Make it a 2-seater, I told her. You'll need company. She smirked. You couldn't handle retirement the first time, Baker. Try fishing instead of fistfights. I gave her a mock salute and pushed open the glass door. The early morning air hit us like a slap. Cold, wet, and real. Jaden climbed into the passenger seat of my truck, curling up like he could hide from the world. I started the engine, glanced at the police station fading in the mirror, and said under my breath, Welcome to the Midtown Circus, where the clowns wear badges and the ringmasters just trying to stay sane. Then I looked at my son. We're getting pancakes. Hospital can wait 10 minutes. He managed a weak smile. You're serious? Kid, I said, turning onto the main road. After the night we've had, I'll buy you the whole damn diner. And as the first hint of dawn cut through the city skyline, I realized something. This wasn't just another night on the job. This was personal, and the show was just getting started. The sun wasn't up yet, but the tension inside the precinct could have powered the entire damn city. You could taste the drama in the air, like static mixed with burnt coffee and cheap cologne. I'd been through hundreds of confrontations in my years as a detective, but nothing compared to watching your own kid sit under fluorescent lights, hands trembling, eyes darting between you and the man who assaulted him. Mark Sutton sat across the table in interview room 3, trying to play it cool, but I could see the twitch in his jaw every time Ramirez shuffled papers. He was the kind of guy who thought he could talk his way out of anything, because his reflection always agreed with him. His lawyer hadn't shown yet, which was already a red flag. Nobody with a working brain shows up to a police interview without backup unless they believe they're untouchable. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. I sat beside Jaden, close enough that he could feel my presence, far enough that I didn't accidentally put my fist through the table. I'd been rehearsing calm like it was an Olympic event. Calm meant control, and control meant I wouldn't end up in a holding cell next to the man I wanted to strangle. Mark leaned back in his chair, smug as a man could be with a nose still swollen from our earlier introduction. He sighed like he was bored. Officer, I already told you everything, he said, flashing that plastic grin. Jaden came at me with a knife. I acted in self-defense. He even gestured with open palms, like he was auditioning for a community theater version of Law and Order. I wanted to laugh. This man really thought he could gaslight an entire police department while sitting in front of a retired detective and a sergeant who'd seen every trick in the book. I leaned forward just a little, enough for him to notice. You sure you want to stick with that story, Mark? Because I'd hate for you to commit perjury before sunrise. It's bad for the complexion. Mark's eyes flicked to me, full of that barely hidden hatred men like him reserve for anyone who refuses to bow. You shouldn't even be here, he sneered. You're retired. Let the professionals handle it. Ramirez smirked from her corner. We are the professionals, Mr. Sutton, she said dryly, flipping a page. You're the one under investigation. Jaden, bless his bruised heart, kept quiet, but I could feel the rage radiating off him. He'd always been calm, level-headed, the kind of kid who walked away from fights even when provoked. Seeing him sitting there, lips split and pride shattered, twisted something deep inside me. Mark continued his Oscar-worthy performance, clutching his chest like a fainting damsel. He's been hostile since Lisa and I got married. He hates me because I'm the first man to give her real structure. His father, don't, I warned. My voice low, sharp enough to cut through steel. He ignored it. His father never taught him discipline. He needs boundaries, consequences. I was trying to give him that. I stood up so fast my chair screeched. Ramirez shot me a warning glance, but I was past pretending. Boundaries, I said, stepping forward. You slammed his head into a counter hard enough to leave a dent. That's not discipline. That's assault with a side of cowardice. Mark tilted his head like he was explaining taxes to a toddler. You weren't there, Paul. Maybe if you'd been a better father. He didn't finish, because Jaden slammed his hand on the table, voice breaking but loud enough to shut the room down. Stop talking about him like that. You don't get to say his name. The look on Mark's face shifted. Not guilt, not shame, but fear. He hadn't expected the kid to fight back, verbally or otherwise. Ramirez's eyebrow went up, and for a second, I almost saw her smile. Mr. Sutton, she said, your story's about to get tested. She nodded at Ty, who was standing by the door with a laptop. Play it. Ty pressed a button, and the small speakers filled the room with Mark's own voice. Angry, distorted, unmistakable. The recording started mid-argument. You ungrateful brat. Mark's voice boomed. You think you can disrespect me in my house? Then came Jaden's muffled protests, glass shattering, the sound of a struggle, and Mark yelling, I told you to shut up. Followed by the gut-wrenching thud that made me clench my fists so tight my knuckles popped. The room fell silent after the playback ended. Mark blinked, swallowed, blinked again. He looked like a man who'd just realized his parachute was a backpack full of bricks. That's not the full story, he stammered. It's audio manipulation. He probably edited it. Ty snorted, forgetting to act professional. Ramirez didn't even hide her disdain. You're really sticking to that? She asked. Because if so, I'd like to introduce you to something called forensic analysis. I leaned on the table, staring him down. Tell me, Mark, how's it feel to finally hear yourself without a mirror? He tried to talk, but his lips just flapped uselessly like a dying fish. You think you can come into my family, I said, voice low, steady, dangerous. Put your hands on my kid and walk away clean? I warned Lisa about you. I told her that smile was just good marketing. And now look at you, exposed, pathetic, and out of alibis. He shot me a glare. You think this makes you a hero? You're just bitter. You couldn't keep her, and you hate that she found someone better. I actually laughed. Loud, full, genuine laughter. Better? Buddy, she went from a detective to a domestic abuser with a subscription to Men's Health. That's not an upgrade. That's a cry for therapy. Even Ramirez had to turn away to hide her grin. Mark's last ounce of composure crumbled. He stood up suddenly, slamming his hand on the table. This is bullshit, he shouted. You're all against me. He took a step toward Jaden, who flinched, and that was it, the end of my restraint. I stepped between them faster than instinct. You take one more step, and I swear to God, I'll teach you a new definition of regret. Ramirez barked, sit down, both of you. But the damage was done. Mark had shown his temper, and the rookie had captured it all on the room camera. Ramirez signaled Ty. Take him out, she ordered. Ty moved in, but Mark twisted away. For a moment, the air thickened, time slowed, and then Mark lunged. Not at me, not even at Ramirez. He went for Jaden again. The man actually tried to hit a kid in a police station. Bad call. Before I even processed it, my body moved on its own, years of instinct kicking in. I grabbed Mark mid-swing and slammed him into the wall so hard the drywall cracked. It wasn't rage, it was physics doing me a favor. The sound of his nose breaking was, well, let's call it satisfying. Like the universe giving me a tiny round of applause. Enough, Ramirez yelled, but she was already stepping forward with her cuffs out. Mark Sutton, you're under arrest for aggravated assault, child endangerment, and obstruction of justice. She read him his rights while I backed off, breathing hard but steady. Jaden stared wide-eyed, half terrified, half vindicated. Mark sputtered through blood and disbelief. You can't do this. I'm calling my lawyer. You can use your one call to order pizza, I said, straightening my jacket. Maybe they'll let you eat it before the arraignment. Ty helped Ramirez restrain him while I pulled Jaden aside. You okay, kid? I asked. He nodded weakly. I'm fine, he said, voice shaky. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did, I interrupted. Because next time, I might not get there in time. That's when I realized my hands were still trembling. Not from anger, but from relief. My kid was safe. Ramirez turned toward me once the chaos settled. You always did have a flair for dramatic arrests, she said. You know there are walls in this city that still remember you. I grinned. Hey, I didn't break this one. The suspect did. She shook her head, smiling despite herself. Get your son home, Baker. I'll handle the paperwork. And Paul, good work. You still got it. As I led Jaden out of the room, the adrenaline started to fade, leaving behind the exhaustion that always comes after a storm. My muscles ached, my jaw hurt from clenching, and my heart was heavy with the realization that this wouldn't be the end. There'd be court hearings, statements, probably media attention. But for now, just for this one fragile morning, I could breathe. Outside, the first light of dawn was spreading across the sky, painting everything gold and gray. Jaden leaned against the truck, rubbing his bruised wrist. He really thought they'd believe him, he muttered. He's good at lying, I said, unlocking the door. People like him always are. But the truth's louder when it finally shows up. Jaden climbed in, staring at his reflection in the side mirror. I just wanted Mom to be happy, he whispered. That hit me harder than any punch. I know, kid, I said softly. But happiness built on lies collapses fast. She's gonna learn that the hard way. We drove in silence for a while, city waking up around us, buses rumbling, coffee shops flicking on their lights, joggers pretending they weren't cold. I glanced at Jaden, who was fighting sleep. You did good tonight, I said. Real good. He frowned. I didn't do anything. You survived, I said. That's not nothing. When we pulled into my driveway, I sat there a moment before killing the engine. You know, I said, I spent years chasing bad guys. Thought I'd seen every kind of evil. Turns out, sometimes it's wearing cologne and sitting at your dinner table. Jaden half smiled, exhausted. You're still gonna tell Mom I told you so, aren't you? I grinned. Kid, I might embroider it on a pillow. He laughed weakly, and that was enough. The laughter told me we'd both make it through this. We walked inside, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I threw together some eggs while Jaden collapsed on the couch, out cold before the toast popped. Watching him sleep, I finally exhaled the breath I'd been holding all night. He was safe. For now. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, hair messy, eyes tired, still wearing last night's fury. The showdown, I muttered to myself. Yeah, we won this round. But the real war starts when the sun's up. And as I poured myself a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt redemption, I decided one thing for sure. Mark Sutton picked the wrong family to mess with. If you've ever had that eerie déjà vu feeling where your past sneaks up behind you and smacks you upside the head with a frying pan, that was me sitting in the precinct lobby at sunrise. I was dead tired, running on caffeine and resentment, and trying to convince myself not to commit a felony before breakfast. Ramirez was in her office going through Mark Sutton's background like a bloodhound with a grudge, and Jaden was finally asleep on the worn leather couch beside me, his hoodie pulled over his head like a turtle retreating from the world. Every few minutes, he'd twitch or mutter something, and I'd have to fight the urge to march back to holding and remind Sutton that karma didn't need a court date when I was around. The early morning light crawled through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor that looked suspiciously like prison bars. Maybe a sign from the universe, or maybe just bad architecture. The door to Ramirez's office creaked open, and Ty Collins stepped out looking like someone had just told him Santa Claus had a criminal record. Sir? He said, holding a thin stack of papers like they might explode. You're gonna want to see this. I stood, stretching my back with the kind of groan only men over 40 make, and followed him inside. Ramirez had her elbows on the desk, chin resting on her clasped hands, eyes locked on a computer screen. The look she gave me wasn't good. It wasn't bad either. It was that dangerous middle ground where you know the next sentence is about to change the plot. What did you find? I asked, already bracing myself. She hit the spacebar, and the monitor filled with mugshots, different states, different dates, all stamped with the same last name, Sutton. The one staring back at me from the top left made my stomach do a backflip. Randall Sutton. The same Randall I'd cuffed 15 years ago in Nevada for armed robbery, assault, and a laundry list of crimes so long it needed table of contents. The same Randall who looked me dead in the eye in open court and said, "One day, Baker, you'll pay for this." Back then, I laughed it off because I'd heard that line more times than I'd heard "Happy Birthday." But apparently, this one wasn't just talk. Please tell me this is a coincidence, I muttered. Ramirez leaned back in her chair. If it is, it's a poetic one, she said dryly. Mark Sutton's big brother is Randall Sutton, your old friend. Nevada, Ohio, Arizona, sealed cases in 3 states. And guess who was the primary arresting officer on the one that stuck? She clicked a file. My name popped up like a ghost from Christmas past, Detective Paul Baker. I exhaled slowly, running a hand down my face. Of course. Because why not? My life's apparently a soap opera now. Ty looked genuinely confused. You mean this guy's related to someone you arrested? Oh, he's more than related, I said. Randall was the kind of criminal who made Hannibal Lecter look like a misunderstood artist. He ran a ring of armed robberies, used kids as decoys, set fire to a corner store just to make a point. When we caught him, he swore I ruined his life. Guess baby brother took that personally. Ramirez folded her arms. Looks like Mark married your ex-wife on purpose. Oh, fantastic, I said, half laughing. I'm part of some long-term revenge plan now. That's great. I've always wanted to feel like a subplot in a bad Netflix thriller. Ty frowned. You think he targeted your family just to get to you? I met his gaze. Kid, men like the Sutton brothers don't believe in coincidence. If revenge was a sport, they'd be Olympic gold medalists. Ramirez clicked through more documents, each worse than the last. Nevada case sealed. Ohio case dismissed. Arizona, plea deal. But look at this. She handed me a printed report. It was a list of domestic disturbance calls filed under aliases: Martin Saunders, Michael Sanders, Marcus Sutter. All variations of Mark Sutton's name. Each with the same pattern: girlfriend, violence, denial, relocation. The guy was a walking red flag parade. Why wasn't any of this caught during the background checks? I asked. Because he's good, Ramirez replied. He changes names, uses just enough fake data to slip through cracks. And frankly, your ex probably never questioned it. Guys like that hide behind charm until it's too late. I sank into the chair across from her, staring at the wall. 15 years. 15 damn years since I'd put Randall away, and now his brother had wormed his way into my family. I should have seen it. The fake smiles, the too perfect behavior, the sudden marriage right after Lisa's divorce finalized. It all lined up like a neon sign flashing setup. My gut twisted, half in anger, half in guilt. Jaden had paid for my unfinished business, and that burned worse than anything. Ty hesitated near the door. Sir, I can pull up Randall's old correspondence from prison if you want. Maybe there's something there. I nodded, and he bolted out, eager to help or escape the tension. I wasn't sure which. Ramirez studied me quietly. You know, this could help the case, she said. Motive's a hell of a thing. Proves Mark's violence wasn't random, it was calculated. I rubbed my temples. Calculated revenge through marriage. That's a new one even for me. People hold grudges, she said. Especially against the guys who put their brothers in prison. Yeah, well, people also get over it, I said bitterly. I guess the Sutton family skipped that chapter. The office fell silent for a moment, except for the distant hum of the vending machine. I watched the sunlight crawl higher through the blinds, landing across Ramirez's wall of commendations. She'd been one of my rookies once, sharp, quick, stubborn as hell. Seeing her now, running the show, made me proud in a way I didn't have words for. You know, I said finally, when I left this job, I thought the worst part would be missing the adrenaline. Turns out it's realizing the bad guys still find you anyway. Ramirez gave a small nod. The job never really lets you go. Before I could respond, Ty rushed back in, laptop in hand, face pale as paper. Sir, you need to see this. He spun the screen around, and there it was, a scanned letter from Randall Sutton dated 3 years ago, addressed to my brother Mark. The first few lines hit like ice water. He's out there living his life, that cop. He took everything from me. Find him. Make him feel what I felt. Make him lose what I lost. Jesus Christ, I muttered. My pulse thudded in my ears. He told him to go after me. Ty nodded slowly. It gets worse. He scrolled. He has a son. Same age I was when I went away. Maybe start there. Let him feel it slow. I stood up so fast the chair toppled over. That son of a... Ramirez grabbed my arm. Paul, stop. It's evidence now. Evidence. I snapped. It's a damn manifesto. She met my glare head on. Yeah, and if you touch him now, it's also obstruction. You know the drill. We'll bury him legally, not physically. I took a deep breath, counted to 5, failed, then counted to 5 again. He went after my kid, Maris. He used my ex-wife to get inside my house. I know, she said quietly. And now we've got the proof. We'll make sure he never gets out again. We stepped back into the hallway. Jaden was awake now, rubbing his eyes, looking small against the oversized couch. Dad, he mumbled. Can we go home? My throat tightened. Yeah, kid, I said softly. We're leaving soon. I shot a look at Ramirez. Call me when the DA's in. I want this case airtight. As we walked out, Ty jogged behind us. Sir, I'll keep digging, he said. There's got to be more we can use. I clapped his shoulder. Good man. And Ty, get some rest. You look like you're 2 energy drinks away from a heart attack. He smiled weakly. You too, sir. Outside, the city was waking up, buses honking, coffee carts opening, pigeons plotting their crimes. I loaded Jaden into the truck, and for a second, we just sat there in silence. He looked at me, eyes still bruised, voice small. Was he planning this? I hesitated. Yeah, I said finally. He was. Because of you? He asked. That one cut deep. Because of me, I admitted. He leaned back, staring out the window. Then I guess we both got hit. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yeah, kid. But you're tougher than he thought. We both are. As I started the engine, I glanced back at the precinct. The building stood there like it always had, gray, stubborn, full of ghosts. I used to think leaving the force meant I could outrun the past. Turns out, the past doesn't need to chase you when it's sitting at your ex-wife's dinner table. On the drive home, I thought about Randall, about Mark, about Lisa. Every bad decision that had led us here. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that I'd seen it coming and ignored it. But one thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jaden fell asleep again, his head resting against the window, and I promised myself right there that I'd see this through. I'd protect him, no matter what. Because if the Sutton brothers wanted a war, they'd picked the wrong man to mess with. And as I pulled onto our street, dawn fully breaking behind us, I muttered under my breath, old enemies never die. They just marry into your damn family. There's a specific kind of silence that happens right before all hell breaks loose. It's not peaceful, not even close. It's the universe holding its breath like it's about to watch something entertaining on pay-per-view. That's the silence that filled the precinct when Mark Sutton decided, for reasons known only to morons and men with too much arrogance, that lunging at my son inside a police station was a good idea. You could see it building in his eyes before it happened. The twitch, the nostril flare, the telltale chest puff like he was winding up for a bad decision. I'd seen that look before in suspects right before they grabbed for a weapon or a wall. And let me tell you, Sutton had all the subtlety of a raccoon with a vendetta. Ramirez had been mid-sentence. Ty was typing something about evidence. Jaden was quietly trying to breathe through his busted lip, and then Mark snapped. He moved faster than I'd expected. Credit where it's due, but rage doesn't outrun training. Before his shadow even crossed my son, my body had already made the decision my brain hadn't caught up to yet. 1 second, he was charging. The next, he was airborne. I stepped forward, grabbed the back of his designer shirt, and redirected him straight into the wall like I was introducing drywall to divine justice. The sound, oh, that beautiful crunch, echoed through the room like an applause track from heaven. His nose made a noise that should have come with a sound effect subtitle. Crunch. Ego deflated. Ramirez barked something that sounded a lot like Baker, but it came out halfway between don't and do it again. The man stumbled, dizzy, clutching his face, blood dripping between his fingers. You assaulted me, he yelled, nasal and high-pitched now, sounding like a cartoon villain mid-defeat. I shrugged. No, that was gravity, pal. I just helped with the introduction. Ramirez was already there, calm as a surgeon, cuffs in hand. Mark Sutton, you are under arrest for assault, attempted assault, obstruction, and being an overall disappointment to humanity, she said. Well, maybe not that last part, but it was heavily implied. She yanked his arms back, snapped the cuffs on tight, and nodded to Ty, who was trying hard not to grin. Bag the evidence, rookie. Why yes, ma'am. Ty stammered, still wide-eyed like he'd just watched an episode of Cops, Vengeance Edition. Mark was howling now, blood staining his perfect white shirt, eyes full of panic. You can't arrest me. I know people. I'm a soon-to-be headline, I interrupted. Go ahead. Tell them to make sure they spell your name right when they run the story about the gym bro who punched a teenager. Ramirez shot me a look somewhere between irritation and gratitude. She liked order, but even she couldn't deny the poetic justice of a man like Sutton being walked out in cuffs while the entire station pretended not to stare. As the door shut behind them, I felt my pulse finally slow. Jaden was shaking, not out of fear anymore, but from that adrenaline hangover that comes after surviving a nightmare. I crouched down beside him. You okay? He nodded, then winced. Yeah, I think so. My ribs hurt, though. I sighed, patting his shoulder gently. Yeah, that's what happens when you wrestle with idiots. They fight dirty. I looked at Ty. Get a paramedic in here, and don't half-ass it. I want x-rays, photos, the whole 9 yards. He nodded, already moving. Ramirez came back in, wiping her hands on a napkin like she'd just finished folding justice into a burrito. He's booked, she said. Processing him now. He demanded to call his lawyer. Let him, I said. Maybe the guy can teach him about consequences between nose surgeries. She smirked. You know, you could have just let us handle that. I could have, I said. But then I'd have to live with the mental image of him hitting my son again. My reflexes didn't give me much choice. She gave a slow nod, then sighed. Just stay out of the paperwork. I'll make sure the report says he tripped over his own ego. When the paramedics arrived, Jaden protested the attention, but I stood firm. Yeah, well, humor me, kid, I said. It's been a long night, and I'm fresh out of trust for the human race. They checked him over while I paced the hallway, too restless to sit. I caught glimpses of other officers whispering, side-eyeing me the way people do when gossip's about to travel faster than Wi-Fi. It didn't bother me. If anything, it amused me. Half the department probably thought I'd gone rogue years ago. This just confirmed it. 15 minutes later, the medic waved me over. No broken bones, she said. Bruises, mild concussion risk. He should rest, but he's lucky. Yeah, I said, looking at my son. Luck had some help tonight. Jaden gave me that small, tired smile again. The same one he had as a kid when I used to fix his toy cars. Thanks, Dad, he said quietly. That one sentence hit me harder than anything Mark ever could. Anytime, kid, I said, my voice coming out rougher than I'd meant it. That's the job. We sat for a bit longer, waiting while Ty wrapped up the last of the statements. The kid came over, looking both proud and guilty. Mr. Baker, sir, I just want to apologize again. I believed him at first. I thought Jaden. I cut him off with a raised hand. Ty, you did what rookies do. You learn, you adapt, and you don't make the same mistake twice. You learned tonight that charm doesn't equal truth. Also, rookie lesson number 1. Never trust a man who uses hair gel before breakfast. That got a laugh out of Ramirez, who'd been pretending not to listen. Ty cracked a nervous smile. I'll remember that, sir. Good, I said. Because the next time a guy with shiny hair tells you his victim fell, you'll know he's about to fall himself. Usually face first. By the time the chaos settled, it was almost 6 a.m. The early shift was rolling in, yawning, sipping coffee, and blinking at the sight of Mark Sutton's mugshot already pinned to the bulletin board. Ramirez had a wicked sense of humor like that. That was fast, I said, raising an eyebrow. Public reminder, she replied. Let the rookies know what happens when you assault a cop's kid. You're a poet, I told her. I have my moments, she said. We stepped outside into the weak morning light. The city was waking up, sirens blending with traffic, and for once, I felt something close to satisfaction. Jaden leaned on my shoulder, exhausted, his voice barely a whisper. He's really going to jail, right? Oh yeah, I said. He's going to get a room with bars and a roommate who calls him princess. That made him snort, which was the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him in days. I'd take it. Ramirez handed me a copy of the arrest report. DA will fast-track it, she said. Given the audio, the injuries, and his outburst, it's an easy win. I skimmed the document and nodded. Good. I want him buried under so much paperwork he'll need an archaeologist to find daylight. Careful, she said. You sound like you missed the job. Miss it? Nah, I said. I just hate unfinished business. As we headed toward the exit, we passed the holding cell where Mark sat, nose bandaged, hands cuffed, glaring at me through the bars. His eyes burned with pure hatred, but it was a weak flame now, a dying campfire. I stopped, folded my arms, and met his stare. You know, I said, I used to think karma was slow, but turns out, it just needed a good motivator. He spat on the floor, blood and spit mixing. You think this is over? He muttered. It's never over. You're right, I said, smiling coldly. It's just starting, and you're going to have front row seats. Ramirez tugged my sleeve. Let's go, tough guy. I gave him one last look, then turned away. There was no satisfaction in it, just inevitability. He'd written his ending the moment he touched my kid. Outside, Jaden climbed into the truck again, head leaning against the window. I drove in silence for a while, the sky painted in pinks and golds like the world was trying too hard to pretend it was beautiful. Dad, Jaden said softly. Yeah. When you hit him, you weren't scared you'd get in trouble? I chuckled. Kid, at my age, the only thing I'm scared of is running out of coffee filters. Besides, sometimes trouble deserves a head start. He smiled faintly. Mom's gonna freak out. Oh, I'm counting on it, I said. She deserves the full Sutton experience. He frowned. You're not gonna yell at her, are you? I sighed. No, son. She made a mistake. She thought she was choosing stability. Instead, she got a walking lawsuit. But yelling won't fix that. Life already did the yelling for her. As we pulled into our driveway, I parked and sat there for a second, staring at the steering wheel. You know, Jaden, I said, you handled yourself better than most adults I've met. I'm proud of you. He blinked, surprised. Even after all that. Especially after all that, I said. Pain doesn't build character. It reveals it. And you? You show me yours. He smiled and leaned back. You gonna write that in a Hallmark card or something? Nah, I said, smirking. Too sentimental. I'll just tell the nurse to put that on your discharge papers. As we walked inside, the house smelled like last night's coffee and quiet. Jaden crashed on the couch again, asleep before his shoes hit the floor. I stood there, looking at him, wondering how close I'd come to losing him, and how far I was willing to go to make sure that never happened again. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the night. I poured myself another cup of coffee, leaned against the counter, and muttered, Cuffs and consequences, huh? Yeah, I can live with that. Hospitals at 4 a.m. are limbo with better lighting. Everything hums, machines, fluorescent bulbs, vending machines, even your nerves. The walls are too clean, the air too cold, and the nurses too calm for people who see chaos daily. I'd always hated hospitals. Too much waiting, too many ghosts hiding behind curtains pretending to sleep. But that night, walking beside a gurney carrying my half-conscious son, I would have taken every ghost in the building over the living monsters we'd already dealt with. Jaden's face looked pale against the white sheets, the swelling under his eye now a grotesque shade of purple-blue. His ribs ached with every breath, and he flinched when the nurse brushed his arm. I followed close behind, boots squeaking on the tile, hands stuffed in my pockets so I wouldn't punch something out of pure helplessness. The automatic doors hissed open like they were sighing at me. Emergency intake, please, I said to the triage nurse who looked like she'd been awake since the Reagan administration. She glanced up, took one look at Jaden, and said, Domestic? I nodded. Her face softened instantly, eyes darting toward the security camera like she'd seen too many nights like this. This way, she said quietly. They led us into a curtained area where the smell of antiseptic could probably burn through steel. A young doctor walked in, tall, ice-blue eyes, scrubs wrinkled like he'd fought a long battle with his laundry. I'm Dr. Holden, he said, professional but kind. Let's take a look at you, champ. Jaden tried to sit up, immediately winced, and muttered something about being fine. Holden gave him that gentle, no-nonsense tone that only ER doctors and kindergarten teachers have mastered. Yeah, every patient says that right before we find out their bones are filing complaints. I cracked a half-smile, though it didn't reach my eyes. You'll have to forgive him, document. He inherited the family stubbornness. It's genetic and terminal. Holden nodded, chuckling faintly. I'll order x-rays for the ribs and wrists, CT for the head, and a photo log for documentation. You a cop? Was, I said. Now I'm just a concerned taxpayer with a grudge. He gave me a knowing look. Good. We like those around here. They pay their bills and don't faint when the blood pressure cuff squeezes too tight. As the nurse prepped Jaden for scans, I stepped into the hallway and leaned against the cold wall, staring at the floor tiles. Hospitals have a way of making time feel elastic. 5 minutes can stretch into an hour, and an hour can vanish when you blink. My phone buzzed, Ramirez. You two make it to St. Luke's? She asked. Yeah, I said. They're checking for fractures. Good, she replied. And for what it's worth, Mark Sutton's cooling off in a holding cell. His lawyer showed up, some slick suit from downtown, but the audio's airtight. He's not talking his way out of this. He'll try, I muttered. Guys like him always do. The louder they shout, the guiltier they are. Ramirez sighed. Get some rest, Paul. You sound like you're narrating a noir movie. Maybe I am, I said, rubbing my temple. But in this one, the hero's old, cranky, and out of patience. When I went back in, Jaden was lying still under a thin blanket, fur attached, expression dazed but calmer. The nurse was cleaning his lip with gentle precision. Almost done, sweetheart, she said, her voice soft enough to disarm nuclear weapons. When she left, Jaden glanced up at me. He's really going to jail, right? He asked quietly. Yeah, I said, pulling a chair closer. And not the kind with golf lessons and green smoothies. The kind with bad mattresses and worse roommates. His lip twitched into a weak grin. Good. Then he hesitated. You think Mom knows yet? Not yet, I said. But she will soon. Ramirez probably called her before we even got here. I didn't add that Lisa's reaction would probably oscillate between disbelief and denial before landing on guilt. That's how it always goes. Dr. Holden returned a while later with a folder and the look doctors give when they're about to say something that'll rearrange your priorities. So, the good news is no new fractures. The bad news, he paused. We found evidence of older injuries. 6 months, maybe more. Hairline fractures in the wrist, healing ribs, signs of repeated blunt trauma. His words hit harder than I expected. You're saying this wasn't the first time? I asked, my tone sharper than intended. Exactly, he said. Whoever did this, it wasn't just tonight. This pattern's long-term. Jaden looked away, shame creeping across his face. Kid, I said softly, talk to me. He swallowed hard. He said it was discipline, that I was being lazy, disrespectful. He'd grab me or shove me if I talked back. My heart went cold. Every instinct screamed at me to find Mark Sutton and finish what the law wouldn't. You didn't tell your mom? I asked. I tried, Jaden whispered. She said I was exaggerating, that he just wanted me to become a man. There are moments when your body forgets how to process anger. It doesn't burn, it freezes. I felt my pulse drop, like my blood had turned to ice. That son of a bitch, I said under my breath. Dr. Holden cleared his throat gently. We've documented everything. The social worker will file the report. It'll help the DA build the case. And Mr. Baker, your son's lucky he spoke up when he did. Another few months, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Thanks, Doc, I said, my voice gravelly. We'll handle it from here. A few minutes later, a woman in a blazer appeared. Clipboard, sensible shoes, the whole government-issued empathy kit. Mr. Baker? I'm Marisol from Child and Family Services. I just need to take Jaden's statement. She smiled kindly at him, then turned to me. Would you mind waiting outside? Jaden looked panicked for half a second. I gave him a nod. It's okay, kid. Just tell the truth. You've got nothing to hide. I stepped out and paced the hallway again. That's what parenthood is, a series of moments where you trade your own soul just to make your kid's pain stop. Through the glass panel, I could see Marisol talking to him gently while jotting notes. Every now and then, Jaden's face would scrunch up and he'd wipe his eyes. I hated that sight more than I hated Sutton's smirk. When the interview ended, Marisol came out, professional mask intact, but eyes heavy. He's brave, she said. And thorough. This will help us ensure protection orders are immediate. I nodded, though my throat was too tight to respond. She handed me her card. If anything happens, or if his mother contacts him against our advice, call me directly. She's not the enemy, I said automatically, though part of me wasn't sure anymore. Maybe not, Marisol said gently, but she's part of the equation. Denial can do as much harm as violence. Then she left, leaving me alone with the quiet hum of machines and my guilt gnawing at my ribs. I walked back in and sat by Jaden again. He was half asleep now, for drip hissing like a lullaby. The nurse adjusted his monitor and gave me a sympathetic smile. He's going to be fine, she said. Kids are tougher than they look. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. He gets that from his mother. She laughed lightly. You don't look too fragile yourself. I grinned faintly. That's just the coffee pretending to be personality. She chuckled, patting my shoulder before leaving. I sat there, watching the slow rise and fall of Jaden's chest, the beeping of the monitor syncing with my heartbeat. For the first time all night, I felt the weight of exhaustion settle in. Not the kind a nap could fix, the kind that seeps into your bones when you realize how close you came to losing everything. My eyes drifted to the hospital window. The city lights twinkled beyond it, oblivious. Somewhere out there, Mark Sutton was sitting in a cell, probably crying into a stainless steel toilet, and yet it didn't feel like enough. I wanted him erased, undone, forgotten. But vengeance doesn't heal broken bones or broken trust. Jaden stirred. "Dad?" he mumbled, eyes half open. "Yeah, bud. You're not gonna get in trouble for what you did, right?" I chuckled softly. "Son, I've been in trouble since 1989. I'm immune." He smiled weakly, then drifted off again. I leaned back, the chair groaning under me, and let out a long breath. "Next time you want attention, kid," I whispered, "fake a stomach ache. It's cheaper." The morning crept in through the blinds, warm sunlight fighting the sterile glow of the overhead lamps. The nurse came in with fresh bandages, humming some old pop song under her breath. "Visiting hours technically start at 8, she said, "but you can stay. I think he sleeps better knowing you're here." I nodded, too tired to argue. "He's all I've got," I said. She smiled. "Then you're already doing better than most." By the time the doctor cleared him for discharge, it was nearly noon. Paperwork, prescriptions, follow-ups, the usual bureaucratic marathon. Ramirez texted me. "Mark's being transferred to county jail. DA's prepping charges." "Good work, old man." I smirked and typed back. He hit the wrong family. I hit back harder. Before we left, the nurse handed me a small envelope. "Your son wanted you to have this," she said. Inside was a doodle from the hospital notepad, a stick figure with a cape and the words "Dad equals hero." My throat closed up. "Tell him I said he's grounded for life," I said, voice cracking. She laughed. "He said you'd say that." As we stepped out into the sunlight, the world felt heavier but somehow brighter. Jaden clutched his discharge papers like they were a diploma. I put an arm around his shoulders, steering him toward the truck. "Let's go home," I said. "And kid," he looked up. "Yeah? I'm proud of you." He blinked, like he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. "Even after all that." "Especially after all that," I said. "You faced hell, and you didn't flinch. That's what being a Baker means." He smiled, small but real. And for the first time in what felt like years, I believed everything might actually be okay. As the truck engine started and the hospital shrank behind us, I muttered under my breath, "Mark Sutton's going down harder than a politician's approval rating." Jaden laughed softly, resting his head against the window. And for that brief, fleeting moment, life, broken, bruised, chaotic, felt survivable again. By the time Lisa's flight landed, the chaos had already cooled into aftermath. Mark was in holding. The DA was sharpening her knives, and Jaden was sprawled on the couch at my house wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly like victory and antiseptic wipes. The house was quiet except for the occasional hum of the fridge and the clink of ice in my coffee mug. I should have been asleep, but sleep doesn't visit parents who almost lost their kid. It just circles the house, mocking you through the window. My phone buzzed with Ramirez's text, "Ex-wife inbound. ETA 30 minutes. Prepare for dramatics." I sighed, staring at Jaden, who was snoring softly, a bruise under his eye and dried blood in the corner of his lip. The kind of visual that could either break a mother's heart or send her straight into denial rehab. Knowing Lisa, it'd start with anger before she landed in guilt territory. I poured another coffee, bracing for the emotional hurricane that always followed her wherever she went. She arrived exactly 32 minutes later, storming into the house like a soap opera character who'd missed her cue. Her hair was perfect. How do people manage that on red-eye flights? And her voice hit that familiar pitch of panic wrapped in entitlement. "Paul," she shouted, scanning the room until her eyes landed on Jaden. The sound she made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "Oh my God, what happened? Where's Mark?" There it was, the question I'd been waiting for. Not "Is Jaden okay?" No, "Where's Mark?" Because priorities. I sipped my coffee slowly, savoring the dramatic pause like an actor milking applause. "He's in a holding cell," I said flatly, "where gentlemen who punch teenagers belong." Her head snapped toward me, mascara already smudging, eyes wide with disbelief. "What do you mean punch?" "He said Jaden attacked him," she cried. "Oh, did he now?" I said. "That's cute. Did he also tell you about the audio recording that caught him turning your kitchen into a UFC ring?" She blinked, confused. "Recording?" "Yeah," I said. "Your son's phone. It heard everything, including your husband's charming bedtime routine of screaming and violence." Lisa froze, the reality finally elbowing its way past her denial. She looked at Jaden again. really looked this time, and her face crumbled. She dropped her designer purse and rushed to his side. Baby, she whispered, voice trembling. Jaden stirred, blinking blearily. Mom. I stayed in the background, arms crossed, watching the guilt bloom on her face like wildfire. What did he do to you? She asked, tears already spilling. Jaden's voice was small but steady. He said I was being lazy. I didn't want to help him with the car, and he grabbed me. When I tried to leave, he pushed me into the counter. Lisa's sob broke through the air, sharp and ugly. Oh God. Oh, Jaden, I didn't know. He told me you were acting out, that you were lying to make him look bad. Jaden's eyes glossed over. You believed him. She covered her mouth, shaking her head. He seemed so calm, so gentle. I thought you were just angry. I decided to give them a minute, stepping into the kitchen to grab another mug. Guilt was doing my job for me. From the living room, Lisa's voice cracked like glass. I'm so sorry, she cried. Jaden, ever the bigger person, muttered, It's okay. It wasn't, but the kid had the kind of grace adults spend decades trying to fake. I poured her coffee because I'm generous like that, walked back in, and handed it to her. 3 sugars, right? I said. She looked up, eyes swollen, mascara streaks down her cheeks. You still remember? Hard to forget something that comes with 3 tablespoons of guilt, I said, dropping into the armchair. She took a shaky sip and stared at the floor. How did this happen? She asked quietly. I leaned back, crossing my legs. You wanted stability, I said. And you thought a gym membership and a 401k meant stability. But some people don't build homes, they build cages. You just didn't see it because you liked how shiny the bars looked. She winced. That's not fair. Neither is your son's x-ray. I snapped. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend furniture. After a while, Lisa whispered. He told me Jaden needed discipline. That boys without fathers lose respect. I tilted my head. Yes, the ancient wisdom of abusers everywhere. Nothing says strong role model like head-butting a teenager into the counter. She flinched again, and for a split second, I almost softened. Almost. Lisa, that's not tough love, I said, voice steady. That's criminal battery with protein shakes. Jaden snorted weakly from the couch, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in days. Even Lisa cracked a tearful smile. You haven't changed, she said quietly. Still sarcastic as ever. Yeah, I said. Sarcasm's cheaper than therapy. She wiped her eyes. Paul, I swear I didn't know. I sighed. I know you didn't. But maybe you should have. I told you something was off about him. You thought I was jealous. You said that about every man I dated after you, she said defensively. Yeah, I admitted. But this time I was right. That earned me a glare. Don't, I added, pointing a finger. Don't make this about us. This isn't our marital postmortem. This is about the fact that your husband could have killed our son. Her eyes widened. Don't say that. Why not? I shot back. Because it's true. She stood up, pacing, muttering under her breath. I can't believe this. He said he loved us. Lisa, sociopaths say I love you the way salesmen say limited offer. It's just marketing. She stopped, staring at the carpet like it held answers. He fooled me, Paul. Completely. He fooled everyone. I said, softer now. That's what they do. They make you doubt your own instincts until you start apologizing for being right. Jaden stirred again, mumbling something about being hungry. I used it as a lifeline to cut through the tension. There's pizza in the fridge, I said. Doctor's orders, grease cures trauma. Lisa shot me a look. Really? It's practically medicine, I said. At least until breakfast. Jaden chuckled. Lisa rolled her eyes, but went to heat it up anyway, probably just to keep her hands busy. I leaned my head back against the couch, staring at the ceiling fan. The house smelled like coffee, tears, and microwaved redemption. After a few minutes, she returned with 3 plates. We ate in silence at first, the kind of silence that tries to apologize for all the words it can't fix. Then Lisa finally spoke. What happens now? Now, I said, we wait. Ramirez and the DA will file charges. You'll probably have to testify. Testify, she echoed, as if the word itself was poison. Yes, I said. You're his wife. You saw signs. Denial won't protect you in court. Her eyes filled again. He'll hate me. He already does, I said gently. But hating you is his hobby. Surviving him is yours. Jaden leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. I don't want to go back there. Ever. You won't, I promised. You're with me now. End of discussion. Lisa nodded, defeated but grateful. I'll file for divorce, she said finally. Good, I replied. Do it fast, before he tries to charm the cell bars off the walls. Do you think he'll actually go to prison? She asked. I met her eyes. Oh, he'll go? Maybe not forever, but long enough to remember what it feels like when people stop believing his lies. She looked down at her coffee, swirling it like it might spell forgiveness. I don't deserve to be his mother after this, she whispered. That's not how it works, I said. You messed up, sure. Welcome to the club. Parenting's just a long series of apologies followed by snacks. That earned me a laugh, a real one this time. Jaden smiled too, crumbs at the corner of his mouth. You're both ridiculous, he said. Yeah, I said, but we're your kind of ridiculous. When the laughter faded, I saw something change in Lisa's eyes, a quiet determination replacing panic. I'll do better, she said. You already are, I replied. Just don't let anyone convince you that love should hurt. She nodded, reaching for Jaden's hand. For the first time in a long while, it looked like a real family moment. Messy, scarred, but stitched together by honesty instead of illusion. The doorbell rang, and Ramirez's voice echoed through the hall. Knock, knock. Thought I'd do a welfare check on my favorite soap opera family. She stepped inside, still in uniform, holding a file and a smug grin. Well, she said. Look who's doing the whole healing through trauma thing. Very cute. What's that? I asked, pointing to the folder. Official notice, she said. DA's charging Sutton with 3 felonies. And your ex-wife here, she nodded at Lisa, is officially off the suspect list, in case you were wondering. Lisa exhaled in relief. Thank you, she said softly. Don't thank me, Ramirez said. Thank your husband for being dumb enough to commit assault while mic'd up like a reality TV contestant. After she left, Lisa sank into the couch again. It's over, she said, half in disbelief. For now, I said. Until court starts. But yeah, this chapter's closed. She looked at me, eyes tired but steady. You still take your coffee black. Always, I said. Bitterness builds character. She smiled faintly. You were right, you know. I usually am, I said. Which part? About him, she said. And about me. I didn't want stability. I wanted control. And he made me feel safe because he was predictable. Abuse is predictable too, I said quietly. Doesn't make it safe. Jaden yawned, curling up under the blanket again. You two gonna talk about feelings all day? He mumbled. Maybe, I said. It's cheaper than therapy and comes with pizza. He laughed, eyes closing again. Lisa brushed his hair back, tears threatening again. He's strong, she whispered. Yeah, I said. He gets that from me. And for the first time in a long while, the house didn't feel like a battleground. It felt like something close to peace, fragile, unfamiliar, but real. Lisa stayed a while longer, apologizing between bites of leftover pizza, promising to do better. I didn't forgive her outright, but I didn't need to. Watching her see the truth for herself was enough. When she finally stood to leave, I walked her to the door. Paul, she said quietly. Thank you. I shrugged. Don't thank me. Thank the rookie with the good timing. Without him, we'd still be stuck in Denialville. She smiled faintly, then left. I locked the door behind her, exhaled, and looked back at my son, sleeping, safe, and finally at peace. We did good, kid, I whispered. Then I poured one last cup of coffee, leaned against the counter, and said to no one in particular, guess some people need a court order to learn what love isn't. If Karma had a filing cabinet, this week's paperwork would have had Mark Sutton's name printed on every page. The kind of case that comes gift-wrapped with evidence so neat even rookie detectives could solve it between coffee breaks. I'd spent the last 48 hours buried in calls from Ramirez, D.A. Alvarez, and half the social services department, all of them tripping over themselves to make sure every inch of this nightmare was nailed down tight. Jaden was finally asleep upstairs, his ribs taped, his nightmares still lurking but quieter now. Lisa had gone home, or wherever home was now that she'd burned down the illusion of stability. And me? I was sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by crime scene photos, coffee rings, and the faint smell of justice brewing in the air. Ramirez called at 9 a.m. sharp, because of course she did. You awake, Baker? She asked, her voice too chipper for someone who probably hadn't slept since the Bush administration. Barely, I said. What's new in the land of bad decisions? DA Alvarez wants you to stop playing detective and let her office handle it, she said. Her words, not mine. Tell Monica she can handle the courtroom, but the streets are still mine, I said, grinning. Ramirez sighed. You do realize you're technically a civilian now? Yeah, but my fists didn't retire. She laughed, then got serious. We got the lab results. Forensics found traces of Jaden's blood on the kitchen counter and the knife in Mark's toolbox. He tried wiping it clean, but luminol lit it up like a Christmas tree. I leaned back, whistling. He kept the knife? Rookie villain move. Yup, Ramirez said. Plus, neighbors confirmed hearing shouting. And get this, his fancy security system caught half the incident before he pulled the plug. Please tell me someone backed it up. Already did, she said. Ty grabbed the footage before it could mysteriously vanish. He's shaping up to be a decent cop. Don't tell him that, I said. He'll start believing he can solve things without supervision. She chuckled. Anyway, Alvarez is putting together the case file. It's solid. The DA's office hasn't had a slam dunk like this since that dentist who tried to write off his yacht as a dental tool. That guy flossed with money, I muttered. Glad Mark's about to floss with prison soap. Don't jinx it, she warned. You know how these things go. I rubbed my temple. I know. But for once, can we skip the legal tap dance and just throw the guy into a pit with a sign that says, learn empathy? You'd make a terrible judge, she said. I'd make an efficient one, I countered. After we hung up, I stared at the case folder sprawled across my table. It felt weird being on this side of justice. No badge, no authority, just a father with too much time and too many ghosts. My old instincts itched, so I did what any ex-detective would do. I started digging. Every loose thread, every timeline. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure Mark Sutton couldn't wiggle through the cracks like every other charming sociopath I'd ever arrested. By noon, the house phone rang, a landline, because I'm apparently 90 years old. Paul Baker, the voice asked, sharp, efficient. DA Alvarez. Ramirez briefed me, but I wanted to speak directly. Always a pleasure, Monica, I said. To what do I owe this professional intrusion? We've got enough evidence to secure a plea deal, she said. But I wanted your input before we make the offer. Offer? I repeated. He gets an offer? The man practically auditioned for a true crime documentary, and you're giving him a coupon. That's how we get faster sentences, she said. If he pleads guilty, Jaden doesn't have to testify. That stopped me cold. You're saying if we drag this out, my son gets dragged back into court? Possibly, she said. But if Sutton takes the deal, he goes away for 7 years minimum. No parole, no early release. Straight time. I hated that she made sense. That's the thing about justice. It's never as clean as you want it to be. It's a negotiation with morality and paperwork. Fine, I said finally. 7 years, no parole. But make sure he's in general population. No protective custody for people who use teenagers as punching bags. Alvarez didn't even laugh. You haven't changed, she said. Still think punishment's an art form. It is, I said. And this one deserves a gallery showing. By the end of the day, it was official. Mark Sutton had pleaded guilty to aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, and domestic battery. No trial, no drawn-out theatrics. Just a signed confession, a tearful apology his lawyer probably wrote for him, and a mugshot that looked like Karma's yearbook photo. Ramirez texted me the news with 3 words. Case closed, finally. I stared at the screen for a long time before exhaling. Closure's supposed to feel good, but sometimes it just feels like silence where the noise used to be. Later that night, Lisa stopped by unannounced again. Less storm this time, more drizzle. She stood at the door holding a bag of takeout, like it was her version of an olive branch. I brought food, she said awkwardly. And news. If it's about Mark, I already know, I said, letting her in. If it's about pineapple on pizza, we're fighting. No pineapples, she promised. We ate in the living room, the TV playing quietly in the background, some reality show about people renovating houses they couldn't afford. After a while, she said, I filed for divorce this morning. I looked up. Good. You're finally rebuilding the right house. She smiled weakly. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. You couldn't, I said. He made sure of that. Men like him are magicians. They make you doubt your own eyes. And you? She asked. You never doubted him? I didn't like him from day one, I said. He shook my hand too tight. That's how you spot control freaks. They treat a handshake like an arm wrestling match. That made her laugh, even if it came out watery. Jaden's lucky to have you, she said. He's the one who saved himself, I corrected. He had the guts to speak up. That's more bravery than most adults manage. The doorbell rang mid-bite. Ramirez, again, of course. She handed me a manila folder and grinned. Congratulations, Baker. Your son's case just got a nickname in the department. They're calling it the Baker Protocol. I blinked. Please tell me that's not a sex scandal. It's policy, she said, smirking. They're implementing mandatory recording checks and cross-verifications for domestic calls. No more, he said. She said, when it comes to step-parents and minors. Your son's audio changed everything. Lisa gasped. They're naming it after you? Technically after him, Ramirez said. He's the one who hit record. I looked at Jaden, who was walking down the stairs slowly, hair a mess, but smiling. You hear that, kid? I said. You're practically legislation now. He rolled his eyes. Cool. Do I get royalties? Nah, I said. Just bragging rights and maybe free donuts at the precinct. Ramirez ruffled his hair. You did good, kiddo. You helped a lot of people without even meaning to. You mean by almost getting murdered? Jaden quipped dryly. Ramirez grinned. That's one way to put it. Don't recommend making it a habit, though. After she left, we sat there for a moment. Just the three of us, quiet but not uncomfortable. Lisa's gaze softened as she looked at our son. He really changed something, she whispered. Yeah, I said. Sometimes pain teaches louder than love. She nodded, her eyes glistening again. You think he'll ever forgive me? He already has, I said. He just hasn't told you yet because he inherited my flair for dramatics. Jaden snorted from the couch. I heard that. Good, I said. Now go to bed. Tomorrow, we start redoing your room. No more monster-in-law decor. His eyebrows rose. Can I get LED lights? Sure, I said. As long as you don't turn it into a rave. What about a lock on my door? Fine, I said. As long as I get a key. We're not raising a future conspiracy theorist. He grinned and headed upstairs, muttering something about paint colors and posters. When he was gone, Lisa sighed. You two make it look so easy, she said. It's not, I replied. It's just honest. That's what you forgot when you married him. You traded honesty for comfort. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You're still infuriating. That's part of my charm, I said. When she finally left, the house felt full again, not with tension, but with something lighter. Jaden's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs, and I realized the nightmare had finally started to fade. I gathered the case files one last time, flipping through the photos, the transcripts, the confession. Every piece told a story, and every story ended the same. Justice, finally. I placed the thick folder into my drawer, closed it, and whispered, Rest easy, kid. The monsters don't win today. Then I poured myself one last drink, sat on the couch, and stared out at the quiet street. Somewhere, a streetlight flickered like it couldn't decide if it wanted to keep shining. I raised my glass to it. Yeah, I said softly. Same, buddy. Same. Because that's what justice really is. Not a victory, not a clean ending. It's a flicker in the dark that refuses to go out, no matter how many times the world tries to turn it off. And as long as I was breathing, that flicker wasn't dying on my watch. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the night everything fell apart, and somehow, in the strangest way, also fell into place. I used to measure time in case files and crime scenes, but now I measured it in therapy appointments, report follow-ups, and the number of times Jaden's laughter filled the house again. It was spring now, and the air finally smelled like forgiveness. Half rain, half second chances. The whole city had moved on, mostly, except the precinct, which apparently decided to immortalize my family drama in their policy handbook. The Baker Protocol. It even sounded dramatic, like a legal thriller starring Morgan Freeman. I didn't want fame, but apparently, you don't get a say when your family's trauma becomes a model for police reform. Ty Collins, rookie no longer, now officially promoted to detective in training, showed up at my door that morning with a box of donuts and a grin so wide I suspected caffeine or guilt. Sir, got something for you, he said, holding out a plaque like it was an Oscar. They made it official. I squinted at the bronze lettering. The Baker Protocol, implemented department-wide for domestic response training, 2025. Below it, smaller text read, because truth deserves backup. I couldn't help but snort. You know, Ty, I was really hoping for a beach named after me instead. Sorry, sir, he said, handing over a jelly donut. City budget's tight. Jaden came down the stairs mid-bite of a Pop-Tart, hair still doing its morning rebellion thing. What's that? He asked, peering at the plaque. Apparently, we're famous, I said. Or infamous. Depends on how many cops actually read training manuals. Ty grinned at him. You, my man, started a movement. The number of cases caught by automatic recordings has tripled. Saves hours of paperwork. You're basically a legend. Jaden rolled his eyes. Yeah, nothing says legendary like hospital food and depositions. Welcome to adulthood, I said. It's all paperwork and trauma with a sprinkle of irony. Lisa showed up not long after, carrying a tray of pastries that could have fed an army. She'd been different lately, quieter, humbler, softer around the edges. Divorce suited her, ironically enough. She still wore guilt like perfume, but she was trying, and that was enough for me. I heard about the plaque, she said, setting the food down. They sent me a copy of the memo at work. Because nothing says Happy Wednesday like reliving your worst nightmare, I muttered. She shot me a look. You should be proud. This could save lives. I am proud, I said. I just wish the price tag wasn't so steep. Jaden, now halfway through his breakfast, smirked. Mom, Dad said he wants a statue next. I did not, I said. But if they're offering, I want abs carved in. Artistic license. Lisa actually laughed, a small miracle in itself. Ty stayed for coffee, rambling about how the department had started running training videos using our case as the main example. They even used your quote, sir, he said. Which one? The one about not trusting men who use hair gel before breakfast. Good, I said. That should be in every academy handbook. After Ty left, Lisa lingered. You know, she said softly, Jaden's counselor says he's doing really well. He's even mentoring other kids in the program. Yeah, I said, glancing toward the stairs. He's stronger than both of us combined. He gets that from you, she said. Nah, I said. He gets it from surviving us. She smiled faintly, sipping her coffee. I'm joining a group, actually. Parents Support Network. For survivors of domestic partners. Let me guess, I said. Your first seminar is called How Not to Date Sociopaths 101. She laughed. Exactly. You should teach the advanced course. I already do, I said. It's called Parenting a Teenager. That night, Jaden came into my office, holding his phone like it was a piece of evidence. Dad, you gotta see this. He showed me a news clip, Ramirez standing in front of a podium, giving a statement about the department's new domestic violence initiative. My name was mentioned twice. Jaden's once. Then they played a short video montage, training sessions, victim outreach programs, officers learning how to handle volatile family situations. Underneath the narration was the tagline. Because every voice deserves to be heard. Jaden watched in silence, then looked up. We did that, he said. I nodded. Yeah, kid. We did. He hesitated, then asked, do you still think about him? I didn't need to ask who he meant. Sometimes, I said. Mostly when I see people pretending to be something they're not. But not in the way you think. He doesn't own my thoughts anymore. Jaden nodded slowly. I don't dream about him anymore, he said. I used to, though. Every night. Now it's just quiet. Quiet's good, I said. Means your brain finally changed the locks. A week later, Ramirez invited us to the precinct for an official presentation. Something about recognition for community impact. Translation. She wanted an excuse to embarrass me publicly. The ceremony was held in the same room where Mark Sutton once tried to rewrite history with his fists. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ramirez handed Jaden a framed certificate, and the whole room broke into applause. For bravery, integrity, and the accidental creation of a procedural revolution, she said. And for reminding us all that even in chaos, truth leaves a trail. Jaden blushed crimson. I stood beside him, awkward as ever. I didn't do anything, he muttered. That's the point, Ramirez said. You just told the truth. That's where change starts. Afterward, Ty took us out for lunch. His treat, since apparently promotions come with delusions of wealth. We sat in a diner that smelled like fried nostalgia, the kind of place where the waitresses called you honey, and the coffee came pre-burned. So, Detective Ty, I said, raising an eyebrow. What's next? Gonna solve global warming with another recording app? Maybe, he said, grinning. Or I'll just stick to arresting guys who mistake control for love. Welcome to the human condition, I said. As we ate, Lisa texted me a photo, her new support group's flyer, her name printed at the bottom under session leader. I smiled and showed Jaden. Look at your mom, I said, leading the redemption tour. He grinned. Guess we're all moving on. That's the goal, I said. No sequels. Later that night, after Jaden went to bed, I sat on the porch with a beer, the plaque beside me on the table. The air smelled like cut grass and rain, the kind of night that makes you nostalgic for nothing in particular. Ramirez called again, because apparently she's allergic to peace. Baker, she said, you watching the news? No, why? Because Lisa just went viral. Excuse me. Her speech at that support group, it got picked up by a local outlet. She talked about the case, about denial, about second chances. She quoted you too. Oh God, I groaned. What did I say now? Something about love being the only crime that shouldn't hurt. I blinked. I said that. Yeah, she said. Try to act humble. People like you better that way. After we hung up, I looked at the plaque again, fingers tracing the engraved words. The Baker Protocol. It was funny. When you're young, you think legacy means medals, promotions, something shiny on your desk. Turns out, it's just making sure the next kid doesn't have to bleed for someone else's lesson. Jaden came outside, rubbing his eyes. Can't sleep? I asked. He shook his head. Too quiet. That's a good problem to have, I said. You'll get used to it. He sat next to me, staring at the plaque. You ever miss being a cop? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But then I remember the hours, the paperwork, and the part where people try to kill you before breakfast. So you don't miss it? Not enough to do it again, I said. Besides, I'm doing more good now than I ever did in uniform. He looked at me thoughtfully. You think Mark ever thinks about what he did? Maybe, I said. But whether he does or not doesn't matter. He's where he belongs. And we're here, still standing. That's the real win. You sound like one of those motivational posters, he teased. Yeah, I said. Except mine would say, hang in there, or punch back harder. He laughed, leaning against my shoulder. You're impossible, he said. Son, I replied. Impossible built the pyramids. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly balanced. The pain, the growth, the peace, it all fit, finally. Lisa's voice came faintly from the TV inside, her recorded speech playing on the local news. And sometimes, she said, you don't realize the person you need to forgive the most is yourself. Jaden and I sat there listening in silence. When it ended, he said softly, she's getting better. Yeah, I said. We all are. As the night deepened, I looked up at the stars, feeling something I hadn't in years. Contentment. The real kind. Not the cheap knockoff that comes from denial. You know, I said, glancing at Jaden, if you ever start a band, you've got your name already. What name? The Baker Protocol, I said. Sounds like rock, but with emotional baggage. He laughed. You're ridiculous. You're welcome, I said, finishing my beer. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like a man surviving aftermaths. I felt like a father watching his son build something out of the ashes, something honest, strong, and entirely his own. Because at the end of the day, that's what healing is. It's not about forgetting. It's about reclaiming the parts they tried to break. And as the porch light flickered off and the quiet of our street wrapped around us, I realized something simple but profound. We didn't just survive the storm. We built a damn lighthouse out of it. Years rolled by quietly, the way healing tends to, without fireworks, just steadiness. Jaden graduated top of his class, walking across that stage with a confidence that made every sleepless night worth it. When he gave his speech, he talked about truth, about courage, and about the power of being believed. He didn't mention Mark or the trial or those hospital lights, but he didn't have to. Everyone in that room felt it. Even Lisa cried, which, to be fair, was her new favorite hobby. Afterward, Jaden handed me a small silver keychain engraved Baker Protocol, for those who believe. I tried to play it cool, but my throat closed up faster than a locked case file. You didn't have to, I said. He grinned. Yeah, I did. You earned it. Lisa and I found a rhythm after that. Civil, respectful, the kind of co-parenting that didn't require therapy or restraining orders. She ran her support group like a pro, teaching people how not to mistake control for love. Jaden started college with plans to study law, because apparently poetic irony runs in the family. I still drank too much coffee and made too many sarcastic remarks, but the weight I'd carried for years finally felt manageable. Sometimes, late at night, I'd still hear phantom echoes of that 3 a.m. phone call, but now it didn't jolt me awake. It reminded me that broken things can be rebuilt, that pain can turn into purpose, and that love, when done right, makes you unbreakable. And every morning, when I saw that keychain glinting under the kitchen light, I'd mutter the same words I did the night we survived it all. Still standing. Still sarcastic. Still Baker.